Hey, welcome to Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday, best I remember. Started this a few moments ago, got interrupted by a phone call and had to stop. I didn't figure you wanted to listen to the telephone ringing in the middle of it. Anyway, I'm glad you're with me today. No matter what, I'm glad you're with me and got some things to share. So come on into my little world for at least a moment and we'll share a thought or two together. You know, this time of year is a time of giving and receiving, it seems like, and we think about gifts and we recognize how blessed we are. It all comes together in a big way. And one of the things that we need to consider in the middle of it all is how powerful forgiveness really is. One of the greatest things you've got in your arsenal of power, one of the greatest strengths you've got is the ability to forgive. And truly one of the greatest blessings you'll find in your life is when you find that you know you are forgiven. Truly one of the most memorable statements of Jesus, one of the most powerful, I think, was one just shortly before he died. It's there on the cross in Luke 23 and verse 34. He says, Father, forgive them. That's not a half-hearted statement. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. What an amazing statement. Here he is dying, and these people are taunting him, giving him a terrible time. He's got nails driven into him. He's hanging in mockery before people, and Father, forgive them. Left a legacy, didn't he? Powerful forgiveness that he left. And so when we think about the gifts and the blessings we receive, there's probably not going to be anything greater, nothing larger, nothing bigger, if we really recognize it, than to know that we are forgiven. Isn't it interesting that the Apostle Paul, in writing to Timothy, writes about himself and refers to himself as the chief of sinners, or foremost of sinners. And said Christ, it's a true statement, he says, faithful statement. Christ came to forgive sinners. He says, of whom I am foremost or chief. Wow. When you think about that for a moment, we recognize how blessed we are. Sometimes we don't see the light of our own sins or our own misdeeds or our own errors in life. But if we could calculate them well, we would find that they are there. We don't really want to ask people because somebody might just tell us about them. But I was thinking about a story that I came across. My father really liked the story. It's the story of John Newton. For John Newton went to sea when he was a very young man, when he was still a boy. Starting off at the lowest levels, perhaps a young sailor or cabin boy, worked his way up and actually became a ship's captain. John Newton, a ship's captain. And over the course of time, found himself engaged in transporting and carrying slaves. And for a time, he was a captain, keeping those slaves on his ship, carrying them from port to port, until one day he could stand it no longer. It was making him physically ill to even begin to think about what he was doing and the hardship that he was bringing on people. What a message he would have had for folks today. But ultimately he reached a point, he said, I cannot do this any longer, and he changed his life. And ultimately John Newton became a preacher. And perhaps he's not best known for the sermons he preached, and because we don't have so much of records of those, but what we do have a record of is his resurrection of his life in forgiveness in God. For he saw the depth of his sin and the greatness of the forgiveness of God. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. We still sing those powerful words, don't we? We still recognize what he's stating there. Maybe we don't see ourselves in the depths of what he saw himself completely, but hopefully we recognize how great the power of grace and forgiveness really is in our lives. For it, nearing the end of his life, it's reported that he said, my memory is nearly gone, but I remember two things, that I am a great sinner and that Christ is a great Savior. Isn't that an amazing statement? Wow. John Newton left those words recorded for us and how he saw his life. The grace of God, the forgiveness that's there. and lays upon us that idea of being forgiving of one another. Every now and then I hear somebody say, oh, I just can't forgive him, or I just can't forgive her. Can't is the wrong word. Won't is the right word. Can, again, is the right word. You can forgive if you are willing. Somebody said, but they need to come and ask my forgiveness. No, not necessarily so. I look at the example of Jesus, Father, forgive them. It's laid out there. Even later, as one of his followers, Stephen, was being stoned by others because he was preaching about the Christ. He said, lay not this sin at their charge. The idea of opening a door to forgiveness is one of the most powerful we use in our lives. Whether it's in our families or to extended people, to friends and the like. It's not just for the deserving. For even God gave his Son for us while we were yet sinners. If God had waited for us to be deserving, where would we be? Sometimes it is the power of forgiveness, the gift of forgiveness, that changes a life, that transforms it for the better. For recognizing we are forgiven gives us the momentum, the impetus to jump forward in our lives and begin a fresh new start. Without that, we're still dogged by the guilt that holds us back. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. We may never have been in the slave trade. We may never find ourselves exactly in his shoes. But can't we apply the recognition of it and the forgiveness of God and carry it into how we deal with one another? For in a season of giving and a recognition of very special things in family and friends, one of the greatest gifts you'll give is that one from you. The power, the blessing, the grace of forgiveness. Thanks for being with me today. Thanks for sharing this moment. I hope it's one that challenges you as it does me. Maybe inspires us to be just a little bit better. So, thanks for being with me. We'll share some more a little further down the road in this year that's quickly winding to an end. Perhaps we can end it in far better fashion than we even began it. And with new optimism, begin a new year. Glad you're with me today. We'll look forward to more a little further down the road.